It's Monday morning. You clock in for another day working at your local neighbourhood Air Force base. You're not a soldier or a pilot or anything, just guys sent underground to do their job. Then in a single moment, everything changes. You lose 2 fingers. Your chest is ripped open by something you can't explain. You're exposed to so much radiation that years later, you're diagnosed with aplastic anemia and terminal cancer. Mondays, right? You survive, but nobody believes what happened. You know what you saw, you know who attacked you, and you know that ever since that day, someone's been watching. So you spend the rest of your life trying to tell the world, giving lectures, showing photographs, displaying strange pieces of metal that you claim came from the incident. You refuse to stay quiet. Then one day, you're found in your apartment. You know, found. Thanks, YouTube. A rubber catheter tube is wrapped around your neck. The official ruling is self-inflicted. But there's a problem. Well, a couple of problems. The tube has no fingerprints, not even yours. Also remember you lost 2 fingers on one of your hands. The same hand you used to officially tie a knot that was strong enough to hold yourself up. And before your family can recover the evidence you spent years collecting, it's gone. The money's still there though. The valuables are all untouched. Only your notes, your samples, and the artifacts connected to your story have disappeared. If this sounds like the plot of a sci-fi film, it isn't. According to one man, his injuries, every scar, and all his years suffering began in 1979, when he claimed he came face to face with grey aliens inside a secret underground facility beneath Dulce, New Mexico. He said one of them fired a beam weapon that nearly killed him. A beam weapon, a laser, underneath a military base. This man went to work and got lit up by the sectoids from XCOM. His name was Phil Schneider, and this is his story. Strap in, kids, as this one's got it all. Aliens, a government psyop, and other things. Let's ride. 1995. A stocky man with grey hair walks onto a small stage at a UFO conference. He holds up his left hand, fingers gone. He opens his shirt, a scar runs down his chest. He says his name is Phil Schneider, structural engineer and geologist. Think Geordie LaForge meets Randy Marsh. 17 years building things the public was never meant to see. Deep underground military bases. He calls them DUMBs. DUMBs. That's the actual acronym. Deep underground military bases. Someone in the Pentagon actually signed off on that. DUMBs. He says there are more than 100 of them under the United States, connected by tunnels, serviced by trains faster than anything on the surface, and paid for out of a black budget so large it swallows a quarter of the country's wealth, a quarter of the money of America, on secret tunnel trains. Unbelievable. He says he worked on 13, and he says that on one job in 1979 something went very wrong. Something he was never allowed to even talk about. But that wasn't going to stop him because he believes he doesn't have long left. Dulce, a tiny town in the high desert of northern Mexico, on the land of the Jicarilla Apache. Above it sits the Archuleta Mesa, a flat-top mountain that looks like nothing at all. Underneath it, according to Schneider, is a base that goes down 7 levels, like a car park, except the lower you go, the less human it gets. And level 6 is where it probably goes to. The upper levels are human. The deeper you go, the less human it gets. The versions of this story that circulated before Schneider ever spoke up describe laboratories on the lower floors, tanks of fluid with shapes suspended inside, cages. Remember what the McMurdo whistleblower said was under the station in Antarctica? We do. One alleged worker gave the 6th level a nickname that stuck: Nightmare Hall. The base, as the story goes, is shared. Humans work the top, something else works the bottom. And for years, an uneasy arrangement held. 1979. Schneider's crew is drilling to extend the base. The boreholes go down into the rock. Something comes back up. First a smell, then readings that make no sense. Then men refusing to go back down. Schneider says he rode an elevator into a section he had never seen. The doors opened, and standing in front of him was something close to 7 feet tall, grey and all wrong. He says it didn't hesitate. A weapon on his chest fired a beam that caught him square in the body. It took his fingers, it opened his chest, it cooked a dose of radiation into him that would surface years later as the cancer, killing him on stage. The Greys have chest lasers. I mean, it's no M36 lasgun, but what do I know? He says the Green Beret died pulling him back to the elevator. And he says that by the time it was over, 66 men were dead on those lower floors. Special forces, feds, gone. 66. Now hold that number in your mind and just remember it for later. He tells every audience he was only one of 3 survivors. The other 2, he says, are all under guard. Then he holds up his hand again, in case anyone forgot. In his telling, Dulce is one node in something enormous. He says the government has been dealing with non-human intelligence since the 1950s, trading access for technology. He says that's where stealth aircraft really come from. He ties it to missing people, to the New World Order, to earthquakes caused by weapons the public has never even heard of. The further the lectures go, the bigger the claims he makes get. Schneider closes every talk the same way. He tells the crowd that saying these things out loud is going to get him killed. He was right. 17th of January 1996, Wilsonville, Oregon. Phil Schneider is found dead in his apartment. He's been dead for several days before they found him. The first read from the coroner's office is a stroke or a heart attack. The final ruling is self-inflicted asphyxiation. The finding is that he wrapped a length of rubber catheter tubing around his own neck. The people who knew him best do not accept it. He told them over and over that there'd already been attempts on his life. Lug nuts loosened on his wheels, threats. His former wife goes on the record saying she doesn't believe he killed himself. She'll spend years arguing he was murdered just to shut him up. And his supporters point at the details. The tube, they say, carried no fingerprints at all. The hand he supposedly used was the damaged one. Again, Bro allegedly wrapped a tube around his neck, ties it off with a hand that's short of 2 fingers, and leaves 0 fingerprints on it. Worst magic trick ever. And the material he'd spent years showing crowds, the notes, the samples, the strange metal, none of it was recovered. The money was left untouched. Only the evidence was gone. A man who said the secret would cost him his life died a year into telling it. So that's Phil's story. It's a good one, and he stuck with it till the end. Now here's the story underneath it all. The Dulce base has a weird history that started before Schneider started some home improvements. It starts with a frightened man on a radio around 1979 to 1980, 90 miles south in Albuquerque. His name was Paul Bennewitz, an electrical physicist. He ran an electronics company right next to Kirtland Air Force Base, home to some of the most sensitive projects in the country. Bennewitz started seeing strange lights over the base at night. He started picking up signals he couldn't place, and he became convinced he was intercepting communications from alien craft. He wrote to newspapers, to senators, even to the president. The next part is actually documented. The Air Force didn't laugh him off. The Air Force got worried because Bennewitz was pointing cameras and antenna at a base where secret aircraft were being tested, and they were afraid of what he might catch. So the Air Force Office of Special Investigations ran an operation on him. An agent named Richard Doty. This son of a bitch is literally a government-funded professional liar and troll before the 14-year-olds of the world had internet access. Excuse me. Richard Doty, working with a UFO author named Bill Moore, began feeding Bennewitz fabricated documents and fabricated stories. The goal was never to talk him down. The goal was to feed the fire until it consumed him. They handed him a mythology, an underground alien base near Dulce, secret treaties between the government and alien species, a coming invasion. Like, they didn't debunk the UFO net. They gave him a fanfic and told him it was the gospel. That's just inhuman. Doty has since admitted his role. How gracious of him. Moore confessed his in front of a UFO conference in '89, on stage to an audience that booed him. They reinforced it in the field. By later accounts, fake air events were planted near the Dulce mountain range for Bennewitz to find. Saucer shapes were projected onto clouds. They built him a haunted house and let him wander through it without adult supervision. It worked far too well. Bennewitz couldn't let go. His health failed, then his mind. In '88, his family admitted him to hospital. A real man's life was taken apart to protect some aircraft. That's the true story at the bottom of Dulce. Bleak. However, even the worst images in these stories have traceable sources. In 1980, after a sighting near the New Mexico border, a woman named Myrna Hansen was put under hypnosis. In that state, she described being taken to an underground facility and seeing body parts floating in tanks. That session fed straight into Schneider's growing story. Alongside the cattle mutilation cases, a state police officer named Gabe Valdez was working on in the same hills. And there was one real event underneath it all. In 1967, the government detonated a nuclear device underground, 21 miles from Dulce. Project Gas Buggy. It's a stupid name. But this was real. Real secrecy. Real explosion. Real strangeness buried in the ground. The legend grew in that soil. Schneider arrives in 1995, 15 years after the legend was already built and circulating. He didn't open the door at Dulce. He walked through the fire exit that was propped open with a bit of wood by Doty's disinformation campaign. When researchers who knew the law put simple questions to Schneider, he struggled. By their account, he described the layout of the base wrong. He missed details anyone stationed there should know. He had never heard of Project Gas Buggy. A geologist who says he worked that exact patch of ground never heard of the gigantic nuclear bomb. Unfortunately, is a fail. The famous number, the 66 dead, traces back through UFO circles to a briefing Bob Lazar claimed to have read at a site called S4, a document that never even named Dulce. His credentials wobble the same way. He claimed a clearance called Rhyolite 38. Rhyolite was the real name of a Cold War spy satellite system, hardware borrowed as a badge. His father, Oscar, was a genuine Navy officer present at real 1946 atomic tests. Phil's version added a U-boat command, the Philadelphia experiment, and photographs of UFOs fleeing a blast. But none of it holds up, and public records show no Delta Force battle, no mass casualties, nothing at Dulce in 1979 at all. Even the wounds have more realistic explanations. Schneider spent years around heavy drilling equipment and hydraulics. Lost fingers and chest scars are ordinary injuries in that line of work. Admittedly, being barbecued by an alien laser is cooler than an OSHA oopsie. And the missing evidence, the fingerprints, the vanished samples, those details come from his supporters and his family, made after his death. None of them have ever been independently verified. They might be true, but they might be grief looking for a shape in all the chaos. There is no way from the outside to ever know. And yet, one loose thread refuses to be tied off. The death itself. The coroner reached first for a stroke, then settled on by a method that plenty of people find hard to picture a person in Schneider's position managing. His former wife has never accepted it. There is no proof he was murdered. There is also nothing about his last year that makes the manner of his death feel obvious. So that part alone stays genuinely unresolved. The Dulce base was most likely a story the government helped write. A fiction built to keep one man's camera off his aircraft. The disinformation campaign is documented. The breakdown it caused Bennewitz was real. And whatever you make of Phil Schneider, a man did end up dead on his floor a year after he started talking. So that's Dulce. Almost. Because before you bin the whole idea of a secret desert base, there's one honest caveat. Bob Lazar's S4 got a brand new documentary in 2026. Luigi Venditelli's S4, The Bob Lazar Story. Genuinely worth a watch. Just know what it actually is. It's Lazar's account rebuilt, with some very slick recreations, and the headline, New Evidence, is the director's own team reckoning they spotted structures cut into the mountainside out at Papoose Lake. Intriguing? Yeah. Proof? Not quite. But here's the bit I need you to keep straight, because the internet loves to blur lines. S4 sits in Nevada, tucked inside the Area 51 range. Dulce is in New Mexico, about 600 miles between them. One does not vouch for the other. If anyone tells you Lazar stuff proves Dulce, they fumbled their map. But what S4 does is make a point for me. The government 100% buries real kit in real deserts and lies to your face about it. So there's a secret base out there somewhere, was never the daft part of Phil's story. The daft part was the 7-story alien murder Airbnb underneath it, with clone tanks and chest laser welcoming committees. But there is no doubt there was real psychological operations undertaken. A real life ruined, a real body wrapped inside a story that may never have happened underground at all. That's as scary to me as an alien firefight. Or maybe it is all real. The US government has proven they won't give you a straight answer anyway, and actively produce disinformation regardless of the cost. We came for the alien lasers and the 7-laser murder dungeon, when the actual scariest thing in the whole episode is that the government invented a monster so convincing it drove a real bloke insane, with no lasers needed. The base, I'd put that at the bottom of the evidence pile. The campaign that built it, that's history. The death, that one I'll leave with you. If you watched my breakdown of the anonymous leak that described craft being built under the Atlantic, you've now seen where that idea sprouted, decades earlier under a mesa in New Mexico. And if you watched the McMurdo file, you've heard it a third time. Cages, tunnels, vats. The same furniture, dragged out and rearranged under a different bit of the map. Same underground. Same promise of proof that never quite arrives. Evidence that was silenced or never existed in the first place. New investigations every week. Decide for yourselves.